creating the data flows between them, making sure they're secure. And it tends to not, when we get engaged, the systems tend not to be like one-to-one, right? It's not that like there's one person on the other end and then, one company, right? There's many companies kind of working together. There's many endpoints, there's many applications that all have to play together well, right? And that's, and we tend to be part of larger projects, but that's where our team's expertise is, right? So when it comes to crypto, personally been dabbling in crypto for years, right? So I probably, everybody probably wants to hear like the first time you touch Bitcoin or read the white paper, right? So that was like, for me, that was 2012-ish, that time frame. And I totally discarded it at that time. Like, I didn't think this was going to turn into anything. I installed, the Bitcoin software. I'm like, what is this, right? Playing around with it. So come back a couple years later, I heard of ETH, the smart contract thing really, and being able to run a virtual machine on top of a blockchain, that interested me because I'm a developer, right? So being able to write code, have, business logic on this kind of peer-to-peer network, that was interesting to me, right? The currency thing wasn't interesting to me. I could give two shits about it. Now I've come around to the whole currency and fiat sucking thing, being a big deal, but it just didn't interest me. So, over the years worked with, various techs, of course, the ETH ecosystem, did a fair amount with a technology called Corda from a company called R3. So Hyperledger, a lot of the enterprise projects, Indy is their self-sovereign identity product, right? Sawtooth is another project they have as far as basically a blockchain in a box type software. So we really focus more on the enterprise space, right? And how we can solve enterprise problems, right? So, and there's a bunch of companies that have sprung up in that industry in the past 5 years that don't focus on cryptocurrency. They focus on distributed ledger technologies specifically, right? And how they apply to enterprise problems, right? The neat thing is a lot of these guys have bridges to the EVM, for example. They're EVM compatible, that they'll bridge from, something running in Azure blockchain to something else. So it's, our background's definitely the enterprise space, but even the past couple of years, I feel like the enterprise space is kind of tipping over toward making sure they integrate with a lot of these public mainnets. So sorry, that was kind of long-winded.
Yeah, no, I that's interesting. I met some of the Hyperledger guys in Seattle a couple years ago as well. There's two camps for Hyperledger. I feel like there's one camp that's like super gung-ho about it, and then there's another camp that said like, hey man, this thing doesn't work.
Well, it doesn't. So actually one of the projects I'm kind of like, I'm not involved with, but I keep an eye on, and I talk to the leads, sometimes a project called Baseline, and they're responsible for, or they're trying to develop a spec, right? And it's really cool because in the space, you have a lot of these teams developing specs and reference implementation. They're not meant to be production caliber things. They're not meant to, like, you can download a Docker container and run 100,000, transactions a second. That's not what they're for. It's a lot of this academic philosophical stuff, right? So what they're trying to do is they're trying to attack, and they're old Hyperledger guys, right? They're trying to attack, how do you integrate SAP and a lot of like Salesforce, right? And Microsoft Dynamics and other Azure services. So they're trying to integrate all these different vendors together, right? And make them play nicely on a blockchain. So, but yeah, I know IBM kind of cut like half. I think they fired half of the Hyperledger team like 2 years ago or something like that. There's it's IBM, right? So they have a lot of things going and they put a lot of bets on, right? And if they fail, it's okay, but they don't need to win all the bets, right? So it was typical big company shit.
Right. Cool. So how did you and Dale end up working together? It was just kind of like, let's build something, or...
For whatever reason, my audio didn't pick up on this recording, so I'm including a voiceover detailing the dialogue of our conversation. So at the initial stages of UNIMOON, before any marketing or the Telegram group was created, we had already been researching and testing the best solution for building a truly decentralized social media network, which is a vital piece of that would be the way the data, media, and content would be stored. So obviously we didn't want to use a centralized company like AWS, Amazon Web Services, to store this data. So we tested out Filecoin, which had an ICO in 2017 and brought in over $250 million to develop the Interplanetary File System, IPFS, which allows people to set up validator nodes and earn rewards for providing their unused hard drive space to fragment and encrypt data. Upon testing IPFS, it was clear that while decentralized, this would not be a scalable nor usable solution for UNIMOON because it took over 10 minutes to download an 8 megabyte file. So during our research and testing of different service providers, we looked into decentralized cloud storage, and we were recommended to meet with Karl, who had glowing reviews from an established and highly reputable blockchain company. It wasn't until after completing interviews with 20 plus enterprise blockchain development companies and several meetings with Karl that UNIMOON had decided on Karl and Utropic Media as the best fit to technologically execute and deliver the vision of UNIMOON, which is to focus on the user experience with a familiar social media application such as Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, with our own social media application, UMOON, on our own layer 1 permission blockchain. So the focus on user experience would allow a frictionless usage on the blockchain. So aunties and uncles and grandmas could use UMOON that functions on the blockchain without even knowing it. And it was very clear that Karl had the professional experience and the technological capability with his experience for enterprise fintech companies that he could in fact deliver exactly what UNIMOON is.
So how far along development are you guys right now? And you guys are building on, is it Matic or what have you guys?
Here I discuss how we're at the tail end of our planning and discovery phase, just before we begin the tech development of UMOON and our own L1 permission blockchain. I'm explaining how we've tokenized on Polygon Matic as it's an exciting new tech and layer 2 scaling solution on Ethereum, but that this is only temporary, as we will migrate to our own L1 blockchain, and we're looking to fork Solana, as it is one of the most highly performant blockchains available. And we wanted to make sure that we have all the pieces nailed down, from especially the social activity coefficient, which is the rewards calculation and distribution, and the algorithm for the content distribution, as it functions with the smart contracts on our own L1 blockchain.
Nice. Yeah, Solana is really hot right now. There's a lot of my friends that are building on Solana as well, and it's every project that's been on Solana so far has done really well. So I think that you guys are gonna launch on Solana, but you're gonna build on storage.
So I'm just reiterating here, because Nathan from Cryptonauts seems a little confused about us launching on Solana, but I'm reiterating here that we will be forking Solana, and we're just taking the existing tech of Solana since it's open source, and we will just be forking Solana into our own ecosystem.
Yeah, and see, we're still going through a lot of the implementation kind of discovery, right? But the general direction so far, and keep me honest here, Dale, right? But the intent is to have our own L1, right? So that, and that does a couple things. One, there's some pros and cons, right? The benefits are that we control the code base, we control the infrastructure, right? The other thing is it's really for strategy, I believe, right? Because it allows us to create a channel program of validators, right? So being able to identify parties and organizations and teams that go through, and all of this has to be designed still, right? But like a vetting process, right? We don't want, the intention right now, like very, very early on, is not to have a random person just spin up a validator and start contributing and validating the UNIMOON blockchain, right? The idea is to create partnerships and alliances, frankly, and build that out in kind of an open nature over time, right? And grow it to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. Like, I mean, you have about 1,000 validators, I think, right now. quote them air quotes on Solana, right? There's not that many, right? The really beefy ones are run by FTX and Alameda, and right. So the idea is to put more thought, and just like these teams have done it as well, put some thought into actually constructing the consortium components, right? The intention is not to have like Google and Microsoft and Facebook and Twitter power the UNIMOON blockchain, right? Just big boys, right? The idea is to have, small, medium individuals eventually be able to contribute to it, but we want to design a process where it's the right people, right? So where they're incentivized properly to run the nodes, right? And the validators. It's not just any Joe Schmo can spin up an EVM and start mining, right? Or Geth and just go at it, right? So that we're trying to find a balance between it. Because once you have that open community, once you have an open community of miners, right, and validators, you get a ton of noise, right? Because they have a voice, and we want them to have a voice. And functionally, early on, we don't need that. We need to get like an MVP done, right, and working, right? That's a priority, right? Not satisfying the needs and desires of a bunch of validators, right, and node operators. It doesn't benefit the project at all at this point.
So here I'm
Eventually
explaining
it may.
how
Right now,
the goal
that's just,
of
it's
building
kind of
our
ways
own
we're
layer
trying to
one
organize.
blockchain and forking a highly performant blockchain like Solana would be so that we can control the ecosystem and make sure that once we are at a global adoption, because that is the goal of UNIMOON, building a user experience that's familiar to people so that we can have and bridge into mainstream adoption. And by doing that, I want to make sure that UNIMOON will be able to keep the transactional fees incredibly low or non-existent. Ideally, we would be able to subsidize the advertising revenue generated from UNIMOON network into the transactional fees, because there needs to be operational costs. Validators need to be incentivized properly so that they can set up their hardware and their time and actually validate the transactions on the network. So the goal is to have this high level of adoption and be able to control the environment and the ecosystem of UNIMOON in a decentralized way so that we can keep the transactional fees incredibly low or non-existent. And later on, we want to be able to have provide the options for other Rust developers to be able to come on and develop layer 2 solutions on top of our layer 1 and be able to have bridges to multiple different layer 1 ecosystems. And that way we can help develop the entire cryptocurrency ecosystem. But what UNIMOON would become is a onboard into cryptocurrency and in a frictionless way for people that have no experience or prior knowledge about the blockchain.
Yeah, and sorry. One of the things that kind of attracted me to the project and the idea too, Nathan, is that it's like messing with DeFi, using shit like Sushi Swap and Curve, and they're great tools for like if you're like if you're, and you got to, frankly, you got to be a nerd a little bit too. You got to geek out on finance and a little bit, right? It's got to interest you, right? Or you're not going to Curve's 1980s Commodore interface and mucking. And it's cool as hell. I love the team. I invested in the project. I love the team. But that's like, these are like things that are like the plumbing, right? The cool thing about this is that it's like, there's like some innovation with the social activity coefficient and the crypto aspect, but it's almost like it's not about crypto. It's really about let's re-rack and refactor social media. Let's make a social media app. Let's make it like TikTok, right? Like a basic version of TikTok, right? And let's sprinkle in some social or some crypto aspects to it, right? So instead of having this large ecosystem of advertisers and have to employ hundreds of employees, you essentially are bootstrapping a DAO, right? So you have a TikTok app, right? And the content creators are programmatically and algorithmically getting compensated in crypto, right? The consumers are getting compensated in crypto. So every time you swipe up, let's say you watch 90% of a clip in TikTok, and then you swipe, you're going to get X number of UNIMOON, right? If you like it, you're going to get X plus number of UNIMOON. If you share it with friends in the app or outside the app, you're going to get Y. Like, so we're going to, the cool thing is that the crypto is like the incentive mechanism to get to incentivize the behavior they're already doing, right? So the idea is go in there, frankly, see what's going on, the best practices in the social media industry, like basically implement those or versions of those, and then add incentive characteristics and mechanics just for the users, right? So it's really frictionless. So they're not doing anything with crypto. They're just watching TikTok dances. They're just watching some dude pop pimples, right? That they're just getting that, right? But they're getting UNIMOON token at the same time. Mm-hmm.
I think the idea is great. I've been talking to a lot of people about it, and also talking about decentralized economies, even sub economies, and entertainment, and as well as where the world is going, like social NFTs and social media in general. That's definitely the right track. I think the hardest part is just user acquisition, but I mean, you guys will get there after you get the MVP out.
And at like a quarter at a time. I come from the enterprise world, right? So, and it's not meant to be cumbersome, it's meant to be correct, right? So we're approaching this as, I'm trying to take the good stuff from enterprise software and then the good stuff from open source software, right? Because the approaches are different, right? There's some commonalities, right? So we're running an agile development process. There's going to be user stories. There's going to be a project plan with a calendar. We're going to share all of this stuff with the community as well. So we're wrapping up the discovery phase, as Dale said, right now, right, over the next week or so. And that's, we consider that like a plan and define. That's where we get a lot of our paperwork together and put a calendar together and do estimates and stuff like that, right? And then, once we do that, then there's some review of it, right, over a week or two. And then we're looking to kind of kick off kind of proper development within the next 30 days. The timeline, again, looks like, within 3 months, 3 to 4 months, there's going to be an MVP, right? What that MVP includes, that's going to be based on what comes out of discovery, right? So, for example, in 3 months, we're not going to get 3 or 4 years worth of TikTok polish and content. It's just not going to happen, right? But what we want to do is part of this collaboration is we're kind of boiling down what's important, right? So the app experience is important. Video editing is important. We want one of the things that we don't know if will be in or out yet, but Dale and I feel strongly about is having production grade video and audio editing in the app, right? So the idea is focus on the creators, focus on it, make it easy for creators to create, right? Create podcasts, create webcasts, do short clips, all of that stuff with some great editing tools, right? And then add the social media aspect on top, right? And it's, it'll be a little rough at first. It's an MVP, but the idea is we want it functional and reliable, right? Because the idea is based on some of the interactions in the app, it's going to go knock against RL1, right? So we expect to get an MVP once we're done with plan and define about between 3 and 4 months out, right? So that will be the mobile app, and that'll be the L1. Mm-hmm. Man.
Yeah, the editing would be, so for us, we have two camps. It's either Final Cut Pro or it's Adobe Premiere. DaVinci is for color, but I mean, they're like subscription based, so that'd be kind of cool if they can pay for a subscription with.
And it's not going to be like either of those, right? Again, we're targeting mobile devices, so this is the idea is that you can go out and create content with quality content, quickly, real time, out in the real world, right? You can do it. You can pop into a Starbucks, do a little post editing, and then you're done, right? So, and again, this is a V1, right? This is MVP. So the idea is that we do all of this, we invest this time and energy, and if there's a community and the community is strong over time, we can get V2, V3, V4 out, and we can actually interface with the community and say, How do you want to prioritize roadmap items, right? What's important to you? Is it the compositing? Is it the video stuff? Is it being able to do live streaming to YouTube Live at the same time as Facebook Live? Like all of these things, the idea is to get something out there touchable, right, for MVP. But MVP is by definition minimal, right? It's the minimum, right? So, at that point, there's kind of like the community and social aspect of the project, right? It's that almost transition to a DAO, right? Is that how does the community, Dale's bootstrapping the community. He's been working on it for months and months and months, right? So once the community's bootstrapped, it's got to be self-sustaining at some point. But the energy, the usage of the app, the voting and the governance aspects, right? And getting, we're in software, we call, there's a process called the chasm process, and it looks like a graph with a line on it with a chasm in it, right? And what happens is most projects get to that chasm of adoption and then they die, right? It could be $20 million enterprise software projects. It could be open source, DeFi projects. They get to some measurement and then they die, right? And if you cross that chasm, you're deemed a success, right? And I see that kind of 3, 4, 5 month window as that chasm, right? Not just the tech, but the community, the adoption, the awareness, all of that stuff. So it's, you get to that chasm and then you see, right, if the community is going to lift you over it.
It's gonna be an upward battle, guys, but I think you can do it. It's gonna be tough, but I think the idea is solid.
Yeah, so over the next, I would say 4 to 6 weeks, right, we're going to finish up draft. They're all drafts, right? So we're going to draft the light paper, and that'll be published, and then we'll have a working draft of the white paper that builds on the light paper, right? So having the idea that the light paper is it's more marketing focused, more ish, right? And then the white paper is going to bridge the marketing and the tech, right? And we'll have, there'll be solution architecture information in there, all of that kind of stuff. But this is very much a work in progress, right? So the idea of algorithmically kind of incentivizing this stuff, putting the web services together is just legwork, right? That's a couple of weeks, some beer and pizzas, right? For a couple of dev team. Shit you not, it is, right? The challenge is now you want to layer in all of this math around, and it's accounting, right? It's right. How do you, and it's not just recognizing the activities that you want to provide equity for, essentially, or utility on, right? It's how do you balance that? What's the measurement of, what's one action worth versus another, and what are the attributes that go into judging whether that action is worth 1 token or 10 tokens? That's something you can't rush. Yeah. People are going to space out and for a couple of days, go on vision quests and come back, and they're going to have epiphanies. And I mean, that's how it is, right? If you're trying to create something new like this, it's not like a book report. You got to sit down and actually experiment.
Yeah, and I think people are starting to game Axie Infinity. I don't know, you guys probably know that game.
Yeah, the game, yeah.
So I mean, that's a full-time job. You're gonna have somebody sitting there hitting the like button. So
I've seen pictures. Action. Yeah, I've seen pictures. They've got rooms full of people doing that, multiple monitors, and yeah.
Yeah, so that's gonna be. I think if people learn that they can make money by liking stuff, so maybe it's like a repeat action. So like the more you do it, the less it goes down a little bit. So they can't just like sit there and mine. Or I don't know.
UNIMOON's algorithm will learn user behavior and distinguish account qualities with account rankings, which will understand if a user is looking to take advantage of the system. The algorithm and social activity coefficient regarding content distribution will favor those users that are looking to create value with quality media and content on the network, as this would be a more fair way for people to earn rewards for not only the users putting value, but also for the UNIMOON network, as new users will be attracted to the quality of content produced on the network. As well, the rewards distributed for viewer activity would be substantially less than those that are creating and uploading content on the network, as original media will create the most virality to bring in the greatest amount of new users. Great content is shared, and those that created are rewarded for the realized value on UNIMOON based on the engagement level and the velocity of that engagement.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
But there's this gets so complicated. The graph gets so complicated because if think of the different people that use it, right? So if somebody's sitting there on TikTok, and TikTok's our analogy, right? So if you're sitting on TikTok for 3 hours and you're liking things, right? So we've got to capture your likes, right? How popular the videos are that you like, right? How many views those videos have, essentially, right? Did you watch the entire video? Right?
Right.
If you're just liking swipe, right, you're going to get discounted and right, you're get penalized. There's all of these incentive mechanics and engineering that has to go on, right? So it's not as simple as just saying, I get a token. I
Right.
get a UNIMOON token. It's way more than that, right?
At the heart of the UNIMOON ecosystem and the layer 1 blockchain is the social activity coefficient. This is going to be the engine identifying values for human interaction through engagement on the UNIMOON network. So people put value with original media, and this media will earn a certain value as it's distributed across the network. That value will then be proportionally distributed in rewards for all the users on the network. This functionality is possible because of the blockchain and smart contracts that allows humans to exchange their time almost instantly with realized value, because we have a way to realize this value instantly through a decentralized social media network, which would be within a roughly 24-hour human time. And so that equivalent amount of time and epoch time intervals. So people now have more reason than ever before to create new original content. If a person puts up a new piece of media and it doesn't have any engagement, it doesn't stop a person from putting a new piece of content tomorrow, because everyone has a fair chance of creating new engaging content that the network will reset every day and recalculate the value for the current day's new media and properly reward the creators for that new piece of content.
Got it. Got it.
And
Okay.
the intention also is to have, not for MVP necessarily, but probably soon after, have bridges to the Ethereum mainnet and Solana's mainnet as well. So again, while we're going to be inspired by Solana's tech, right? And frankly, we're just copying it, right? Because it's one of the better ones. Well, it's open source, but there's a lot of open source stuff out there and a lot of open source garbage, right? So the ecosystem's good enough right now. They had an outage last week, right? So their shit still breaks. But the idea is that we'll likely end up forking Solana and then having a bridge over to it, just for ease of use, because we want to access Solana's community and we want to access ETH's community as well.
Would that mean all the developers would have to build it in Rust if you fork it?
Yes.
Or
Yes. Yeah.
Nice, man. Nice. So it's utility and UI. I think UI is really important. I'm glad that somebody gets it. Like I say it all the time that UI, UX is everything, and people just don't. Yeah, they just don't.
And it's my thing is too, is that when projects, when people look at projects that have failed, they tend to, UX in crypto is horrible, right? But when people think of UX, it's the screens, it's the wallet swaps, it's having, they don't think about, like, to me, that's almost like an excuse for a project to fail, right? Is that the reality is the crypto experience is so bad because you have to manage wallets, right? Wallet management sucks, right? Finding this weird hexadecimal like string and copying and pasting it, right? You're asking for disaster. Grandma is not going to do that.
There's
right?
no way she's going to forget the 12 words
right,
too.
Right. So, but my point is that every wallet interface has that. Right, whether it's Trust Wallet, Exit, whatever, they all have this shit. Right now, they try to make it better with QR codes and something else that's less kind of manual intensive. Right, but the challenge is under the covers, all of the crypto plumbing and services rely on these constructs. Right, the wallet addresses, contract address, all of this stuff. Right, I think that we've got to come up, and we don't have an answer yet. But somebody has to spend time on how do you deaggregate all of that crap and just make the user experience not involve it, right? So again, if you have TikTok, great analogy, right? Or metaphor. If you have TikTok and you're doing stuff with, you can jump in right away, have stuff auto generated and not even interact with a wallet, right? You're just consuming media, you're publishing, you're a content creator. That's it, right? It's just a traditional social media app. And I think until the crypto kind of projects and the crypto ecosystem start thinking in things of not building based on crypto, but start with something else, right? And just add crypto on a little bit, right? Not every crypto project should be about crypto.
Yeah.
Right. And everybody makes it about crypto for a lot of reasons I don't agree with, right? I think the best kind of unicorn projects and teams that come out of crypto are the ones that find a good functional fit for some of the crypto technology, but their project's not all about crypto. It's about something totally different.
Nice. Yeah, I think I'd love to get involved. Do you think we can create like a group together and kind of just like keep seeing how, because I'm really slammed right now. So for this next week, I'm probably going to be tied up, but I would love to get involved. And all I've been saying, it's all about the UI UX. And so I mean, for us, our audience is actually not crypto audience. Our audience is the everyday person, the person walking on the street, the cousins, the uncles, the aunties, we just have to make it like Sesame Street or like Magic School Bus, like otherwise they're not going to understand. Like there's no way my grandma's going to understand how to use MetaMask and import a seed. Like there's just, it's literally impossible.
That goes back to my point about like, I think 90%, the vast majority of crypto projects are not going to gain mass adoption, right? You're even crypto the past 10 years, right? It's built up this following and this interest and engagement from nerds, right? And geeks. Like it just has, right? We can get we see what's going on. We understand it. It's novel. There's something that somebody is going to pique a technologist's interest over time. Like it's going to be the smart contract aspect. It's going to be the NFT, like 1155 aspect where you can keep getting royalties. Like that's cool. That's a cool mechanism, right? There's going to be something in crypto that's going to latch onto somebody, right? Like if you are a technologist and you have that science or math mindset, right? The challenge is all of these crypto projects I see, and I haven't seen any that are different from this, and they may be out there. I don't know them all, right? But they start in crypto and they're working in crypto, right? They're trying to create a new wallet. They're trying to create bridges. They're trying to create an AMM with like 5 or 6 smart contracts. Like that's what they're doing, right? That is not going, to your point, the aunties and uncles, it's not going to do shit for them, right? Now it's going to help free them from like incumbent financial institutions, yes, right? But it doesn't do anything for them, right? And it really doesn't, there's no vector to educate them on any of that shit, right? They're going to want some easy app to walk to or just interact with a cashier to just use stuff, right? They're not going to even want to flash a QR code. Fuck that. Like they don't, it's too cumbersome. The whole thing. Strike is even too cumbersome, right? And again, one of the things that appeals to me about this is attacking social media, which aunties and uncles know how to post to Facebook and all of these other ones, right? So we'll see.
We'll see. I mean, it's a good idea, guys. I will give it to you. So yeah, let's chat more. I mean, Dale can make a group with us 3.
Yeah.
Keep going. I gotta run. But I mean, let's chat more in the future. Definitely interested. So let's see how we can work. Next week, yeah, at the earliest, because yeah. All right, guys. Yeah, Karl, it's great to meet you.
Yeah, you too, Nathan.
All right, guys. Yeah, peace.
Cheers, bye.